of the impact of these incidents on the US economy and the world economy?
Well, I would hope that they don't have any long-term impact. I suppose it will depend a bit on how quickly things return to normalcy as far as travel and so forth is concerned. There's no suggestion they won't. There may be a lapse of a few days, but I would hope that the impact on the economy would not be lasting. I haven't really sat down and thought about the economic impact. I've thought more about the human and political and diplomatic impact.
Do these events affect at all your thinking about election time?
No.
You wrote to George Bush. Have you had a chance to talk to him?
No, I had 3 hours with him on Monday, and yes, I realise that. No, I haven't sought to speak to him because...
Have you had any briefings from American
yes,
officials?
I have. Yes, I have. I've had several.
Yeah. In terms of the changed security...
I've had several high-level briefings from the Americans about a number of things in which I won't choose to go into.
On airport security, apart from the general...
We leave the Prime Minister John Howard there talking from Washington, and if all's still going according to plan, he should be in the air about now, heading for Honolulu before heading home. We'll take this opportunity to take you through the latest developments on the day after America came under attack. A senior US government official revealed a short time ago that the passenger jet which crashed into the Pentagon was originally targeting the White House. It's also believed the President's plane, Air Force One, was being targeted yesterday. Meantime, the FBI says it's made significant progress in the hunt for those thought to have been involved in assisting the hijackers. Police have raided a hotel in Boston and 2 homes in southern Florida. Officers are interviewing people they say can provide information. So far, no one has been arrested. Just before those raids, authorities also seized a car in a parking station at Boston Airport. 5 garbage bags full of evidence have also been seized and taken to the airport's police barracks. It's now mid-afternoon in New York, where the mission to find survivors in the rubble of what was the World Trade Center is continuing. At last report, New York's mayor says the official death toll stands at 45, but estimates of the overall death toll still vary from 10 to 20,000 people. 3 Australians have been confirmed as being among the dead, with up to 60 still unaccounted for. As yet, the names of those Australians confirmed killed have not yet been released. A short time ago, US Secretary of State Colin Powell announced he's building a strong international coalition against terrorism after speaking with leaders and foreign ministers of Western nations.
A strong coalition to go after these perpetrators, but more broadly, to go after terrorism wherever we find it in the world. It's a scourge.
The rhetoric from the White House has gone from shock to anger, with President George Bush making this statement at a press conference overnight.
The deliberate and deadly attacks which were carried out yesterday against our country were more than acts of terror. They were acts of war.
As we've just mentioned, Prime Minister Howard has spoken in Washington and is due to fly back to Australia shortly on a specially organised US military flight. Overnight, he received a standing ovation during a visit to the US Congress, which has continued its policy of business as usual.
In this very difficult time. Thank you.
Back here in Australia, anti-Arabic feeling in the wake of the World Trade Center disaster appears to have surfaced in Sydney's west. Intruders have broken through a window of the Antioch Orthodox Church in Marylands and tried to set it alight. They have also scrawled offensive anti-Lebanese graffiti and spray-painted swastikas on the walls.
Given what's happening in the world today, I think we might see it happen here and probably in a number of other locations due to the nature of some people, the way they behave.
3 fire brigade trucks attended and quickly put out the blaze. Police have been canvassing the area for witnesses. And repeating, at least 3 Australians have been killed in the terrorist attacks in the United States. One was on board one of the aircraft that crashed into the World Trade Center. Another was on the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. A 3rd Australian has been killed by falling debris near the base of the World Trade Center. The department continues to operate a hotline for anyone worried about family or friends in the United States. The 24-hour number is 1300 555 135. That number again, 1300 555 135. And now we take you back to live pictures from America, the coverage from CBS.
People have just done a fabulous job in dealing with that issue, and I can congratulate everybody, but I do express my tremendous sympathies on behalf of the state to all of you for the losses you've incurred. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for your help and
Thank you,
your
Mr.
support.
Mayor. Thank you, Governor. I just want to say on behalf of all of the council members and really the people of the city that during a terrible, terrible time of crisis, I can't think of the better leadership that we've had, probably the finest hour I've ever seen, with Mayor Giuliani and with the governor standing next to me. You know, it's during a time of crisis you know who your friends are. It's during a time of crisis you know the people that really are able to help. This is like being in a foxhole together. They've responded to the greatest horror in my life, probably all Americans' lives. Can't imagine anything worse, but I can't imagine anything finer than to see how New Yorkers have risen up to this challenge. And I guarantee everyone that New York will rise from the ashes, be much better than it ever was before, and that those responsible for this are going to realize they picked on the wrong city.
News conference here in New York City. We're covering it live with Mayor Giuliani, the governor, and the head of the city council, along with New Jersey's governor. Ed Bradley has some information about law enforcement here in the Northeast. Stopping a train, Ed?
This comes in from the website of the Boston Globe. It's called boston.com. It says that the FBI has stopped an Amtrak train that left Boston heading south. They stopped it in Providence, Rhode Island, took 3 people off the train, and they are being questioned as we speak by law enforcement authorities. The mayor of Providence has said that the police authorities told him that they were looking for 4 suspects that had eluded police in Boston. They have 3 of them, they think, being questioned on this train.
Thanks, Ed. Mary Schiavo, former Inspector General of the Department of Transportation of the United States, joins us now live from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you very much for being with us. What does all this say about security at our airports?
Well, it says we have a tremendous hole in security, and it's unfortunately a hole we've been aware of for some time.
Well, if it's a tremendous hole, we've been aware of it for some time, why hasn't something been done about it before this tragedy struck?
Well, actually, there are several reasons have been given, not the least of which are 2. One is money, and the other was the inconvenience to passengers. What has happened is there have been a number of studies in the past, and when the fixes were laid out, what had to be done with the aviation security in the system, the response was pretty much the same. We did this in 1993, we repeated it again in 95, 96, and we laid out many things, everything from human failure, such as even though we had laws and regulations, we didn't follow them, we didn't do proper screening, we didn't train our screeners, we didn't have the equipment in place to even do the job at many airports, and when we would make the recommendations, the response was the same. 1, we have not had a terrorist attack on domestic aviation. They considered the threat really to apply more to foreign aviation and no credible, realistic attacks on domestic aviation. And 2, they said that American passengers simply would not put up with the inconvenience of the screening, nor did they want the expense on the airlines. And unfortunately, we have heard that many, many times over the past 10 years as the excuse for not having adequate security.
In your judgment, give me 2 things that could be done fairly quickly to help fix this problem.
Well, 2 things, depending on how vigorously and how much they invest, you could do, I don't know how quickly. 1, we do have to have adequate security screening and trainers. They have to be trained. The mere fact that we're having a debate over what is an acceptable knife to go through security shows that our security is woefully ridiculous. I've actually heard debates about people saying only if it's a menacing knife. Utterly absurd in this day and age. We're having that debate. They need to be trained, etc. But the second part is we need to have the background checks. We need to know who is on the other side of our security screening. So now when the screeners look at passengers and say, you know, you might be a potential terrorist, who are you? Passengers are going to look back and say, who am I? Who are you? And have you had the adequate training and security? And those are 2 things that must be done. Frankly, they should be done before the airports are reopened, but I don't think we have that chance.
Ms. Galvo, The airports are owned by the taxpayers. Why not federalize airport security?
Well, actually, airport security should be federalized in a law enforcement agency. That's one thing that is very unusual and doesn't make a lot of sense in our government. We have aviation security centralized in the Federal Aviation Administration, a civilian aviation agency charged in part with encouraging or promoting aviation. They call it encouraging now, but the bottom line of the airlines' finances has often been the ruling factor. In almost every other country of the world, airport security is a law enforcement function. It is done by law enforcement experts and personnel. Here the FBI does the threat assessment, but then turns it over to the FAA to make us safe. It should be a federal law enforcement function, FBI, Customs, another candidate, but not the FAA.
Maris.
CBS there.